Hey guys, I'm Heidi Priebe. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time here. So today we are continuing a series that we started with my last video, How to Recognize When You're in the Drama Triangle. This was meant to be a three-part series. I've decided to combine the last two videos into this one, so it's now a two-part series, and we are going to cover the rest of what we have to cover about the drama triangle today. So grab some snacks, hope you're well rested, and we will get into what to me is the most interesting part of all of this, which is how to disengage from the drama triangle in a way that allows you to actually get what you want out of your life. So this video for me is a really important personal one. I think that I probably spent a solid 28 years of my life inside of the drama triangle. It was the way that I learned to communicate. And as I grew up, it became the way that I learned to keep other people close. Because it took me a really long time to realize that there was another way of doing things, that it was possible to figure out what I actually wanted, figure out which fears, vulnerabilities were driving my behavior without me recognizing it, and then learning to communicate those things honestly and directly, and learning to form relationships where that type of communication is the basis of it. Right? Everyone showing up as they actually are. So what this video is about at its core is the process of intentionally maturing. When we are in an immature worldview, which is what it means to be in the drama triangle, we are operating under the assumption that the way we feel and the way that we process information is kind of intrinsically tied to other people's behavior. So the way that I feel and the way that I'm going to live my life is highly dependent upon the way that other people treat me. Stepping outside of the drama triangle and developing a mature worldview means holding standards for the way that we will show up in the world and the way that we will treat other people, regardless of how anybody treats us. So this is about developing integrity and internal consistency in the place of reactivity. And learning to live like this means learning to set boundaries and be very intentional about the types of situations and people who we choose to get close to. So this is not going to be the recipe for an easy life where you don't have to do anything difficult to get the types of relationships and the types of situations that you want. This is the recipe for not wasting your life. Not the easy path, just the worthwhile one. Now, the first thing I want to point out about the drama triangle that I think is really important to understand is that I believe the number one cause of being inside of it is not recognizing when we are inside of it. So tip number one for stepping outside of the drama triangle and ceasing to waste your time on pointless drama is learn to recognize when you are triggered and then develop a system that you will fall back on when you are triggered. I really like that quote that I think people often talk about this being an army thing that they tell you. You don't rise to the level of the challenge, you fall back to the level of your training. You need to have a system for what you will do when you are triggered, because when you are triggered, you will not rise to the occasion. You will be functioning in a state that is not reasoning properly, that is not giving you the accurate information about the situation you're in, and you will need to have something you can fall back on that is pre-decided. So if you want to stop living in the drama triangle, the first thing I recommend you do is start getting really clear on what it feels like when you're triggered, and then what you will do to make sure that the moment you're triggered, you don't fall directly into the drama triangle. Now, a situation in which we're feeling triggered is by far the easiest way we fall into the drama triangle because, one, when we're triggered, we are mixing up the past and the present. So we are reacting to something that is happening in the present as though it is the culmination of all of the emotions that are similar that we have felt in the past. So an example of this is, let's say your partner cancels a date that you had last minute. And in the moment, maybe that's disappointing, right? You wanted to go on the date, you planned for it. It's not necessarily the most polite thing to do. But let's say you grew up in a family where frequently plans were made and then canceled last minute. And as a result of that, you learn to internalize this feeling of nobody really respects my time. Like I'm just kind of at the mercy of whatever everybody else wants to do, and I don't get a say in whether or not plans move forward. So now, as an adult, if your partner cancels a plan last minute, it's possible you're going to be feeling not just the frustration of that thing that happened as an adult, you might also be feeling that kind of core wound of nobody respects me, or I don't deserve to be in the know. And so you might now be having a 7 or 8 out of 10 reaction to a 2 or 3 out of 10 situation. And if you're not aware that that's happening for you, it's likely that you're going to enter into a bad faith argument, like we talked about in the last video. So again, a bad faith argument is an argument where what you are claiming you are there to resolve is not actually what you're trying to resolve. You have some hidden need that you're trying to get met through the argument without explicitly stating what the need is. The reason it's the easiest to have a bad faith argument when we're triggered is because we might not even be consciously aware of what that need that we're trying to get met is. So we might actually think this really big reaction that I'm having to my partner canceling is truly just about them canceling in the present moment. But then for some reason, maybe it doesn't feel as resolvable as it should. Maybe they apologize, take accountability, even have a really good excuse for why they need to cancel, and that still doesn't feel like enough. Your body still feels like it's activated, you're angry. There's something you can tell that's still in there. It's very likely that what you're experiencing is a flashback to all of those other times you've had similar things happen, and the story that you began to tell yourself about why those things happened. Which brings us to a very important second point about why we're most likely to go into the drama triangle when we're triggered. When we are triggered, we are often flashing back to a time when we are very young. So our emotional systems might be acting as though we are 5, 6, 7 years old, maybe even younger than that, maybe even 1 or 2 in stages when we didn't have language yet. And when we are young like that, when we are in a state where we are dependent upon our parents for understanding us and for being able to see and respond to our needs in order for our survival needs to be met, the stakes feel very high in conflict situations. We might be forgetting that we have resources available to us that we used to not have available to us because we feel younger than we are in actuality. Now, this doesn't mean that we have to never engage with people when we're triggered. It's going to vary person to person how you want to deal with being triggered in interpersonal situations. So for myself, I have a rule that as soon as I start to feel really triggered, like if I feel like, okay, I'm really activated, I'm feeling really angry, or I'm feeling really disgusted with someone, whatever it is, I give myself 2 options. 1, I can cease to engage with the situation I'm engaging with, and on the off chance, if it turns out I'm not triggered and I actually did have the perfect response to this situation, then I will still have that perfect response tomorrow, right? There's no harm in giving it a day and coming back to it. But if I do choose to proceed when I'm triggered and do choose to continue interacting with someone when I'm triggered, my rule for myself is I have to overtly let the other person know, hey, I'm feeling really triggered right now, or I'm feeling really defensive right now. And that way, I'm now engaging in a good faith argument, right? The person knows they're explicitly made aware of the fact that I might be muddling up the past and the present right now. And so they're not engaging with me as though I am being completely rational when I am aware that I am not. Now, disclosing that I'm triggered means I'm putting myself in a vulnerable position. I'm letting the other person know I'm a little bit muddled up right now, right? So that requires me to think very carefully about who it's safe to continue talking to in that state. If I let someone know I'm triggered and that is a person who is likely to take advantage of the fact that I'm a little bit muddled up and confusing past and present, maybe they're going to start over-ascribing present wrongs to past things that I'm upset about. So going, oh, you're just projecting the past onto this, when in reality I am trying to address the present. That's probably someone it's not very safe for me to do this with. It's not very safe for me to talk to when I'm triggered. So in this process, we learn when to protect ourselves. So my system is not going to be everybody's system. We all have to figure out what we need when we're triggered and how we can maintain a sense of integrity in our interactions when we're triggered, or if we can't do that, how we are going to find a way to disengage and return to the situation once we are clearer on what's the past and what's the present. And there is absolutely no shame if you need to do that every time you're triggered. I actually think that for a long time, that is pretty good practice, is just taking a beat and figuring out, okay, I need some time either alone or with trusted friends, loved ones, or a mental health professional who can help me parse apart what of this emotional reaction I'm having is related to this situation versus what is stuff from the past. So that is tip number 1 for living your life outside of the drama triangle, is learn to recognize when you're triggered and then have a system you develop when you are not triggered for what you will do when you are. And this is kind of like a security system you put in place against yourself. So when your own psychology is not running the show in the way that you would normally like it to, you have a system in place to protect you from yourself, to make sure that you're not going to be actively making things worse when you go into a triggered state. Now, tip number 2, which we already touched on momentarily there, is learn to process your emotions in a mutually truthful way with safe, emotionally mature people. So what stepping outside of the drama triangle is not about is becoming counter-dependent and trying to live in such a way where you never need anything from anyone. Ironically, when we feel like we don't need anything from anyone, that's often a sign that we're inside of the drama triangle and we are in rescuer mode. If you are a human being alive on this earth, you need close relationships. That is a human need. You need people who can check you, people who can let you know what you're missing in your blind spots. But if you've been living inside of the drama triangle for the majority of your life, it's likely that the people you are closest to are your yes men. So when we live inside of the drama triangle because we grew up inside of it and that's the way that we know how to keep relationships going and how to keep people close, we tend to form friendships with people who have the same preference because it's almost like we share the same language. Having a social circle that is filled only with yes men who will always tell you you are right, the other person is wrong, or who will maybe try to savior you from your pain in some way or rescue you from your bad feelings is one of the most surefire ways to waste your life and stay very small. So the difference between someone who has an immature or drama triangle based worldview and someone who has a mature or non-drama triangle based worldview is that people who have emotional maturity intuitively understand that there are two sides to every story. So let's say that you are in this position where you're trying to start living your life outside of the drama triangle, and you go up to a family member who you have never really set clear boundaries with before. And you kind of lay down the law a little bit and let them know, here's where I am going to be taking more space or whatever it is. And let's say they get really upset and really activated and they go, well, you don't care about me, and have all of these kind of fiery things to say. If you take that information and tell it to, let's say, a friend of yours who is inside of the drama triangle, it's going to be the same old persecutor mindset of one person is 100% wrong and the other is 100% right. But if you take that same situation to someone who has a more balanced, emotionally mature mindset, they're going to be able to help you see it from both sides. So they can empathize with the fact that this is really difficult for you, that is probably a really painful experience to go through. But also, it sounds like the family member was also in pain. It sounds like maybe they were confused because you haven't ever set a boundary with them before. So they got very used to this certain norm in your relationship, and suddenly you're completely deviating from it, and that's probably a little bit dysregulating for them, right? Maybe the reaction that they had in that moment is not the reaction they're going to have 6 weeks from now when they recognize that you setting this boundary actually allows the relationship to get better. So in situations that are high stress, that are high strung, where we are feeling like, I don't know what's true and what's false, I don't know if I'm a good person or a bad person, it's going to be really helpful for us to have people close to us who can provide us with balanced perspectives. But to understand those more nuanced perspectives when we ourselves are dysregulated and not seeing things clearly requires us to have proactively developed a circle for ourselves of people who we trust to give us accurate feedback. And developing that type of social network can take a really long time. So this isn't a short-term goal, right? But if it's something that you're really struggling with in the moment, so you feel like there is nobody you can go to in your life who's able to provide you with more balanced perspectives, I recommend looking for a therapist or some other type of professional who's able to weigh in on things in a more regulated and even way. And the more that you're able to see both perspectives, the more you're able to naturally start internalizing that there are two sides to every story in every situation you go into. And so over time, you're likely to also begin talking about your own situations in a more balanced way. And the more that you approach situations in your life in a balanced way, the more you're going to attract people who think similarly to you, and the easier it's going to become to start building up that social network of people who are also emotionally mature. It takes time, but to say that it is time well spent is perhaps the greatest understatement I could possibly make. This is your life. These are the people who are going to make up your life. And at the end of it, you want to look back and know that you had actual real connections with people that were not BS, that were not just you yes-menning each other. And it's worth spending your life working towards that goal if it's something that currently is not something you have or have ever had. All right, tip number 3 for stepping outside of the drama triangle is learn to identify which unmet needs you have a tendency to project outwards, and then grow up those parts of yourself that think you cannot meet those needs on your own as an autonomous adult. Now, for most of us, we don't live our lives entirely in or entirely out of the drama triangle. For most of us, there are certain areas where we are quite self-sufficient and where our emotional age perfectly matches our literal age. And then there are other little pockets of our psyche where our emotional age is quite a bit younger than our literal age. And when we tap into those parts of ourselves, we go directly into the drama triangle, even if in most situations in our life, we operate from a more mature worldview. So this step is all about figuring out where those pockets of your own psyche are and what work you need to do in those areas to make sure that you are not defaulting unconsciously to the drama triangle in those types of situations. Now, a hack that I like to use for figuring out where those areas of our psyche are is thinking about which emotions tend to come up when we get triggered. I like to think of triggers as our inner children screaming at us to get protection for ourselves. And if we are not going to protect ourselves, if our inner children have noticed, in this situation, you, my parent, are consistently not setting boundaries or taking care of me, I am going to become so emotional that maybe my emotion will spill out of you onto someone else, and that person will protect me in the areas that you are refusing to. So I used to have a tendency, particularly in romantic relationships, to get really triggered and angry when I perceived my partner to be doing something that I thought was morally wrong. Persecutor was a stance that I was a natural at. So as soon as I would get triggered, my go-to response was to explain to my partner on no uncertain terms what I thought they were doing that was morally wrong. And then if they tried to defend or explain their behavior, I would point out, also on no uncertain terms, why their logic was flawed and their explanation was not good enough. Now, when I was a kid, my best shot at getting fair and respectful treatment truly was criticizing the people who I believed were not treating me with fairness or respect, and pointing out flaws in their logic, and trying to make a case for myself to get them to change their behavior. But the problem is that that part of me never fully grew up. For a lot of years, I truly believed if someone was disrespecting me or behaving in a way that I didn't like, I was unable to set boundaries around that. I just had to try to convince the other person to stop doing that. So in my own healing journey, I had to learn and get really clear on which things I need to have boundaries around, right? My inner child was screaming at me to set them. And it is the job of my adult self to make sure I am seeking out people to be close to who have a preference for the same type of communication that I do, if that's really important to me. So I wish that when I was young, someone had just told me there are different ways of existing in the world. People enjoy different levels of analyzing moral situations, and you are someone who enjoys doing that a lot. But some people find that really annoying. So if you are trying to project the type of life you want to have onto the people around you so that they mirror it back to you, you're going to end up in a lot of really chaotic and frankly unfair scenarios. It's unfair to expect that the people around you, just because they're in your life for whatever reason, are going to perfectly mirror back the qualities that you want the people in your social circle to have. If there are certain qualities that you really value in other people, you have to go seek people out on the basis of them having those qualities and choose to be close to them because of that. You can't try to change the people in your life to mirror the types of qualities you would like. And I want to be very clear about this because it's one of the key mistakes I see people making when, let's say, they're approaching attachment theory. They're going, okay, I've met this person who is completely emotionally unavailable, but I really like them, and I'm just going to try to make them be emotionally available. That is a preference. If you have a strong preference for emotional availability and you want everyone you're close to be emotionally open and emotionally available, that's a totally okay preference to have. I have the same one when it comes to my inner circle. But it's not your job to change an emotionally unavailable person into an emotionally available one. It's your job to figure out that that is a value you have and seek out social connections with people who share that value, which actually is starting to infringe heavily on point number 4 for how to live your life outside of the drama triangle, which is figure out your relationship preferences and norms and respect other people's right to have different preferences and different norms, even if those preferences and norms seem unhealthy or stupid to you. This is about living in the opposite of the persecutor mindset, right? In the persecutor mindset, you are imagining that everything that happens is either right or wrong. Everything that other people and yourself do are either right or wrong. And if you can just figure out who's right and who's wrong, then you can get the other person to change and give you what you want. So when I first discovered the drama triangle, I learned this really fun kind of advanced drama triangle trick, which is I learned to start pointing the finger at other people and going, "You're in the drama triangle." And of course, the natural and very ironic other half of that sentence, which I was not saying aloud, was, "And I will not be okay until you step out of it." So I was in my persecution of other people being in the drama triangle in the victim position myself. So this step is about learning to step outside of that and learn that there are no rules about how people need to behave outside of whatever rules make up the legal system in the nation that you live in. And this can be a really hard thing to accept. But the sooner we internalize this, the easier our lives get. People have the right to be in the drama triangle. There is no law that says they cannot be inside of it and that they cannot spend their entire lives pointing the finger at everybody else and refusing to look at their own contribution. People have every right to do that if that's what they want to do. But if you've decided that you're only going to be okay if everybody else steps outside of the drama triangle and starts behaving the way that you want them to behave, you are now in the drama triangle. So I cannot drive the following points home hard enough. Dramatic people have the right to be dramatic. Unless they're breaking the law, they legally are allowed to be as dramatic as they want. Narcissistic people have the right to be narcissistic. Unless they are breaking the law, there is absolutely no punishment out there, formally, for just being a very self-aggrandizing person. Shady, self-victimizing people who are going to take every situation and spin it so that they are the victim and you are the big bad guy have the right to do that. They have the right to lie to you, to exaggerate things, to cheat on you, to take no accountability for anything that they do, and still call it all your fault at the end of the day. People have the right to behave terribly. Now, does that mean we have to agree with their behavior? No. If it were up to me, I would be running the world very differently, but the world is not up to me. Which means the way the world works is that there are a lot of things out there that I don't like that people are nonetheless perfectly legally allowed to do. And the only real choice I get in the matter is which standards I will have for the type of behavior that I allow myself to engage with. That's the only choice I get. So if someone is being manipulative, if they are being narcissistic, if they are being dishonest or shady, or they are emotionally harming me in some way, the choice I get is, do I want to continue to engage with this person or not? And getting good at this requires us spending time with ourselves, like we talked about in the last step, and figuring out what's really important to us in relationships. So an example of this is I personally hate passive aggressiveness. Like, it is one of the number one things that drives me absolutely crazy in human behavior. So rather than trying to force the people around me to never be passive aggressive, I just let people know at the beginning of me starting to get close to them, whether it's a new friendship, whether it's a budding romantic relationship, hey, I don't deal with passive aggressiveness. I do not like it. I hate having to deal with things in kind of indirect ways. So here's how I operate. I will always take you at face value. If you tell me you are fine and we are good and there is no problem between us, I will approach our relationship as though you are fine and we are good and there is no problem between us until you tell me otherwise. But if you do have a problem with me, if there's something that I'm saying or doing that's upsetting you, I promise you that if you come to me and you tell me directly what that is, I will sit with you and I will stay present in that interaction with you until we figure out a solution to it. I will take your feelings seriously. I will not dismiss you. I will stay with you if you are honest and direct with me until we work that problem out. Because I just have a preference for non-passive aggressive communication. Now, passive aggressiveness is not inherently bad, right? Somewhere out there, there is a couple or a friend group comprised solely of people who love indirect communication and who actually strongly prefer to deal with things without talking about them directly. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like if it works, right? It's just about figuring out what we like and what we do and don't want to put up with, and then finding people who share similar preferences to us. So maybe the worst thing that you can possibly imagine is your partner sleeping with someone else. And you might think, like, yeah, that's a pretty universal preference. I don't necessarily have to communicate or enforce a boundary around that. But somewhere out there, at this exact moment in time, there is someone who has been scouring the internet and has just learned the word compersion and is currently trying to convince their partner that they should go have sex with someone else. That person or that couple might just share a preference for non-monogamy, but you have a preference for monogamy. So your role becomes making sure that when you're dating someone, they have that same preference as you and they're willing to agree to it. And if that preference is really important to you and you make an agreement based on it and the other person breaks the agreement, then it might be time for you to respect your own boundary and get out of that relationship, even if someone else would stick around, right? This requires knowing yourself and listening to yourself when you feel like something is really important to you, and then making that need explicit so that you are not trying to implicitly get it met within the drama triangle by guilting, shaming, or blaming someone else into behaving the way that you want them to behave. So this step is all about uncovering what it is that we actually want deep down. What is actually really important to us in our relationships? And can we make those needs explicit from the get-go, even if we think we're asking for something that isn't necessarily fair? It doesn't matter. If your other option is trying to manipulate that person into doing something that you think in the back of your head is kind of unfair, it's a lot better to ask them outright, get them to say yes or no to it, and if they say, what the hell, definitely not, then maybe it's your job to take a look at the type of expectations that you are setting out in your relationship and ask yourself, do I maybe have some unrealistic expectations? If so, why? Which needs am I not meeting for myself that I'm now putting on other people? And how can I change my life in such a way that I no longer need to be outsourcing those needs? So again, this is not the formula for an easy life, right? This is the formula for not wasting your life on things like refusing to identify and make clear what it is that you actually want out of it. And it's worth pointing out here that there are some people who have a preference for being in the drama triangle, right? And they are going to spend their whole lives there. And if you don't want to be stuck in the drama triangle yourself, you have to let those people do that, even if you love them. Figure out how to set your own boundaries in such a way that you do not get stuck in the drama triangle with them, and then do not waste your life. Even if someone you really love and would really like to have as a close companion in life is hell-bent on wasting theirs. You don't have to make that same decision. There are a lot of ways to love and support people from a distance without getting dragged into their mess, right? And living outside of the drama triangle is going to require you to figure out what those ways are. Now, today's final tip for not wasting your life inside of the drama triangle is learn to identify which interpersonal battles you are willing to lose in order to win the long-term war of your own self-respect. So there's a quote I've always loved by Sherry Argov that goes, truly powerful people don't explain why they want respect. They simply don't engage with anybody who doesn't give it to them. And I think that for me, this kind of encapsulates what it is to step outside of the drama triangle. When we are in the drama triangle, we are spending so much of our time desperately trying to figure out how we can bargain or manipulate our way into being respected by other people. And in that process, we are losing our own self-respect. In life, people are going to invite you into the drama triangle. It is going to happen. People you love and want to be close to are going to invite you into the drama triangle. It is going to happen. In a best case scenario, you can find healthier ways of relating to those people. You can be explicit with them about wanting to find new ways to work through issues and about creating safe environments where you both feel like you can process things in a more direct way. Or if that doesn't work, you're going to have to learn which battles you're willing to lose and let go of, which relationships you're maybe willing to let go of in order to keep yourself on your own team. People are going to put words in your mouth and accuse you of things that are inaccurate when they are in persecution mode. People are going to act like they will not be okay if you don't rescue them when they are in victim mode. People are going to try to create a dynamic where you are dependent on their help when they are in rescuer mode. And in a lot of those cases, it's going to feel difficult to say no and walk away from those invitations into the drama triangle. You might tell yourself, I'm going to stick around and argue with this person who's accusing me of something just long enough to clear my name and properly explain what happened. Or I'm going to help this person who's struggling just this one more time, just this last time so they can finally get on their own feet. Or I'm going to take just this one last free handout from this person because right now I could really use it. And in each case, that's how it restarts, right? That's how you go right back into the middle of the drama triangle and start going around in circles. So in each of those cases, what we have to remember is that there is an opportunity cost to being in the drama triangle. What we're losing when we're in the drama triangle is not just time, money, energy, though it's probably also all of those things. It's our own self-respect. Every time we decide that we need to go engage with someone who is offering us a bad faith argument because we believe I will not be okay if I don't get them to see things my way, or if I don't offer them the help that makes them think of me as a good person, or if I don't take the help that allows them to feel connected to me because they are supporting me, we are telling ourselves the way someone else feels about me is more important than how I feel about me. Staying connected to this person in an unhealthy way is more important than my own connection to myself and the standards that I want to hold myself to. Over time, living in that way erodes the relationship that we have with ourselves. So again, this is not about becoming an island and never engaging with any sort of conflict. There are healthy ways to move through conflict. So ask yourself, every time you find a conflict situation coming up, is this something that I can navigate with this person in a healthy way? If I express my genuine feelings openly and authentically, if I put my real, deep needs and preferences on the table, and am open to collaborating on a solution based on this person doing the exact same in return, is it likely to make the situation better? Is it likely that we're going to get somewhere if we approach this honestly and directly? And if so, that is a wonderful conflict to enter into, because it means you're going to be learning not just about someone else's perspective, but probably also a lot about your own. And you're going to be able to walk away from that situation feeling proud of yourself and closer to the other person. But if the only option you have, because of the way that the other person is willing to engage with you, is to be dishonest or manipulative in your approach, it's probably worth losing some battles with that person to figure out which boundaries you need to draw around your relationship with them that allow you to maintain your own sense of self-respect. Any situation where honest, vulnerable, direct communication makes things worse rather than better is probably a battle it's worth losing. If someone is in persecutor mode and they are really committed to persecutor mode, they want to twist everything you say, they want you to take 100% responsibility while they take none, it is probably worth just letting that person badmouth you and not engaging with the situation. They will get bored and they will move on if you do not engage with them for long enough. Let the liars lie about you, and if you need emotional comfort around what's happening, turn to those other emotionally mature people in your network who will be able to reflect back to you your true nature. right? Which is neither 100% good nor 100% bad. If someone is chronically in a victimized position and they really need help, it's probable that you continuing to rescue them from their own situation is actually just enabling them to never develop the skills they need to get better. Let those people learn to get back up on their own, and in the meantime, find a way to caretake your own emotions around what it feels like for you to watch them struggle. This doesn't mean cut off everybody who's in a bad way. It just means do not go into the drama triangle by enabling people in situations where if you were not enabling them, they would have to learn to help themselves. And when it comes to people who are playing rescuer and who are offering you handouts with no strings attached, but in the past, there have always been kind of secret, subtle, insidious strings that have come up later on, maybe in ways that they want you to treat them emotionally. Let those people go find other people to attach their strings to. Set boundaries and move on with your own life. Let those battles be lost so that you can maintain a solid relationship with yourself. Because it is only once you have that solid, trusting, self-respectful relationship with yourself that it's going to start getting easier and easier to find healthy people who also respect themselves to have healthy relationships with. We cannot step out of the drama triangle if we are determined to win every battle someone invites us into that takes place inside of it. Have a rule for yourself that you will only deal with problems outside of the drama triangle and start to approach your life that way. You will start getting invited to less and less petty battles as time goes on. So, if there is anything that stepping outside of the drama triangle reminds me of, it is the quote, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. When you are in the drama triangle, even if you are able to kind of win the drama triangle in every iteration of a fight, so you always end up in that victim position where the other person feels responsible for meeting your needs, you are winning a stupid prize. You are just winning a codependent dynamic that will get flipped on its head very quickly. You will then be the bad guy to the other person, and you are signing yourself back up for years of endless drama. Well, the better life that you could have had flies out the window. Don't do that to yourself. Do not waste the time, the energy, the resource that you have on this earth on pointless drama that goes nowhere. There is another way to live. There is a way to live that will allow you to reach the end of your life and look back on it and go, thank God I chose to live the way I did. Thank God I learned to play the right games with my life. I became the person I wanted to become. I formed the types of relationships I actually wanted to have. And I got out of my life what I set out to get out of it. I played really big, meaningful games with my life, and I won things that actually mattered to me in a real way. It's not going to be easy, but it's not going to be a life that you waste. Okay, I think that's all I have to say for today on the topic. But as always, I'm curious about what thoughts, feelings, perspectives are coming up for you guys as you watch this video. Where are you in this process? And I want to remind all of us that there's no shame in wherever we are. If you are here and you are trying to make your life better for yourself, I am so proud of you. That is all that we can ever do, right? Is work as hard as we can with the tools we have at our disposal. So as always, I love you guys. I hope you're taking care of yourselves and each other and your inner children, and I will see you back here again super soon.